My name is Nancy. I am 33 years old. I have 2 children. My daughter is 7. Her name is Emily. My son is 5. His name is Jack. We live in a small house. My husband Mark lives with us too. We have been married for 8 years. I work in a small company. I clean the rooms and help in the kitchen. I work 4 days a week. It is not a hard job, but I get tired. I do not make much money. But I need it. We need food, clothes, and school things. Mark's full-time. He drives a big truck and brings boxes to stores. He comes home late. He always says, "I work all day. I am tired." When I met Mark, he was kind. He smiled a lot. He gave me flowers. We went to the park together. We talked about family love and the future. I felt happy with him. He wanted children, I did too. I thought he would be a good father. But now he is not the same. He gets angry over small things. He does not smile. He shouts a lot. If the food is cold, he gets mad. If the kids talk too much, he shouts at them. If I speak, he tells me to stop. I try to stay calm. I try to make the house quiet. But it is hard. One night I made dinner. I cooked chicken rice and green beans. I waited for Mark to come home. I was tired, but I smiled when he walked in. He looked at the food. He did not say thank you. He said again, "Why do you make the same food every week?" I said, "I thought you liked it." He shouted, "I eat this all the time. You never listen." Emily and Jack were sitting in the living room. They looked at us. Emily held her doll. Jack put down his toy. They were quiet. I saw fear in their eyes. I said softly, "Please, the kids are here." Mark pointed at the door. "Then send them away." I helped the children go to their room. I gave them a book and said, "It's okay, just read for a little while." Back in the kitchen, Mark sat and ate in silence. I sat too, but I could not eat. My stomach hurt. That night, I tucked the kids into bed. Emily said, "Daddy was loud again." Jack said, "Is he mad at us?" I kissed them and said, "No, sweethearts, he is just tired." But inside, I was not sure. The next morning, I made toast and eggs. Jack dropped his cup of milk. It spilled on the floor. Mark walked into the kitchen. "What is this mess?" he shouted. I said it was just an accident. He looked at me. "You stay home and still can't keep the house clean." I cleaned the milk. Jack said, "Sorry, Daddy." But Mark just walked away. After breakfast, I took the kids to school. On the way, Emily said, "Can we go to Grandma's house this weekend?" I asked, "Why?" She looked down and said, "Because it's quiet there." I didn't know what to say. At home, I cleaned the house. I washed the clothes. I made lunch for Mark. He came home for his break. He ate fast and said nothing. When he left, I sat on the sofa and held my head. My heart was heavy. That night, I gave the kids a bath. They laughed and played. For a moment, I smiled too. Then I heard Mark from the other room. "Why is there so much noise?" "They're just playing." I said, "I need peace after work." He shouted. I helped the kids get dressed. Emily said, "Is Daddy angry again?" I said, "Let's just go to bed." I sat in the dark and thought, why is he like this now? Why do I stay? But I knew the answer. I stayed for the children. I had no money to live alone. I had no car, and I was scared. The next day, I walked the kids to the park. They ran and laughed. I sat on a bench. Another mother sat next to me. Her name was Sarah. She smiled and said, "Your kids are sweet." "Thank you," I said. She looked at me for a moment and said, "Are you okay?" I smiled, but not with my heart. "Just tired," I said. "If you ever want to talk." She said, "I'm here." I nodded, but I did not speak more. I didn't want to tell her I felt shame. That evening I cooked again. Mark came home and said this again. I didn't answer. I just served the food. He said, "Say something, are you deaf?" I whispered, "Please, not tonight." He stood up and pushed the chair. It made a loud sound. Emily ran into the kitchen. "Stop!" As she cried, Mark looked at her and then left the room. I held her. She was shaking. That night, I cried in the bathroom. I turned on the water so no one could hear me. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red. I did not know who I was anymore. I wanted to leave. But how? I did not want to take the kids away from their home. I did not want them to miss school. I was scared Mark would come after us. The next morning, I called my mother. She answered, "Nancy, is everything okay?" I said, "Can we come visit this weekend?" She said, "Of course," I told the kids. They smiled. Emily packed her small bag. When Mark came home that day, I said, "We will go to Mom's on Saturday." He didn't look at me. "Fine. Don't spend money." We took the bus. It was a short ride, but I felt like I was going far. My mother opened the door and hugged us. Emily and Jack ran inside. They looked happy. My mother looked at me and said, "You look tired." "I am," I said. She gave me tea and asked, "Is everything okay at home?" I looked at her. My eyes filled with tears. I said no. She held my hand and said, "Tell me." My mother gave the kids some fruit and turned on the TV. Emily and Jack sat on the floor and watched a cartoon. They laughed and talked. I sat in the kitchen with my mom. She looked at me again. "Nancy, are you okay?" I looked down. I was quiet for a few seconds. Then I said, "Mark is angry all the time. He shouts at me. He shouts at the kids. We are not happy." My mom said, "I knew something was wrong. You look sad. You don't call much anymore. I wanted to tell you," I said, "but I was afraid you don't have to be afraid with me." She said, "You are my daughter." I felt tears in my eyes. I don't know what to do. I want to leave, but I have no car, no house, no money. "You have me," she said. "You are not alone." I smiled a little. It felt good to hear those words. That night, we ate dinner together. The kids were happy. They played with their toys after dinner. My mother helped me wash the dishes. She said, "You can stay here for now. There is space." I shook my head. "Mark will be angry. He may come here. If he comes, I will talk to him." She said, "You and the kids need peace." I looked at her. "Thank you, Mom." She smiled. "You are a good mother, Nancy. You are doing your best." I helped the kids change into their pajamas. I gave them a blanket and a kiss. They slept on the bed in the guest room. I lay on the sofa and closed my eyes. For the first time in many nights, I slept well. The next morning, I made tea. My mother sat with me. She said, "Do you want to go back?" I said, "I don't know." She looked at me. "If you go back, nothing will change. I stay for the kids." I said, "I don't want them to grow up without a father. They need love, not fear." She said she was right. I knew that. Later that day, I took the kids to a small park near the house. Emily ran on the grass. Jack picked up small stones. I sat on a bench and watched them. I felt happy. It was a quiet, simple day. No shouting. No fear. In the evening, I called Mark. I had to tell him where we were. He answered, "Where are you?" "We are at Mom's," I said. "You didn't ask me," he shouted. "You were not listening." I said I had to go. He said, "Come home now." I took a breath. "No, we are staying here for now. You think you can take my kids?" he shouted. I said, "They are my kids too." He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "You will regret this." I ended the call. My hands were shaking. My mother came in from the other room. "Are you okay?" "Yes," I said, but my voice was small. She gave me a hug. "You did the right thing." The next day, I went to the school near her house. I spoke to a teacher. I said, "Can my children come here for a short time?" She smiled and said, "Yes, we can help." I felt a little hope. That night, I sat with the kids. I said, "Do you like it here?" Emily said, "Yes, I like Grandma's house." Jack said, "I like the park." I smiled. "Do you miss Daddy?" They were quiet. Then Emily said, "He is always angry." Jack looked down. "He shouts too much." I kissed their heads. I wanted to cry, but I stayed strong for them. That weekend I got a call from Mark. I did not want to answer, but I did. He said, "I am sorry." I said nothing. He said, "Come back. We can fix this." I asked, "Will you change?" He said, "I can try." I said, "The kids are scared of you." He got quiet. I said, "You hurt us, Mark." I stayed for the children, but they see everything. He said, "I didn't mean to, I was just tired." I said, "That is not a reason to shout and scare your family." He said, "Please, just come home, I need time." I said, "I need to think." He said, "Fine, but don't take too long." I felt tired after the call. I wanted a quiet life. I wanted my children to grow up happy. My mother said, "Do not go back just because he says sorry." I know I said, "I want to be smart this time." The next day, I took the kids to the new school. They were a little nervous, but the teacher was kind. I watched them walk into class with small backpacks. I felt proud. At home, I helped my mother clean. We talked while we worked. She said, "You are stronger now." I said, "I don't feel strong." "You are." She said, "You chose peace." That evening I got another call from Mark. I let it ring. I did not answer. Emily sat next to me. She said, "Are we going to stay here forever?" I looked at her. "I don't know, but we will be safe." She hugged me. "I like it here." I held her close. Me too. 2 weeks passed. We were still at my mother's house. Each day was quiet. I made breakfast. The kids went to school. I helped my mother clean. We had dinner together. We laughed more. We talked more. Emily smiled again. Jack slept better. He did not cry at night anymore. One morning I looked at the sky. It was blue. I felt calm, but Mark still called. Sometimes he sent messages. One message said, "I miss the kids." Another said, "You cannot stay there forever." Then he said, "I will come and take them back." I felt afraid. I showed my mother. She said, "Do not answer. Keep the messages." Later that day, I went to a small office near the bus stop. A woman there helped people in my situation. I said, "I left my husband. He was angry all the time. My kids were scared. I have no place to go." She said, "You did the right thing. You are brave." She gave me a paper and said, "This tells your rights. You can stay with your mother. You can keep your children safe." I thanked her. I felt a little stronger at home. I gave the kids a snack. They were happy. They talked about school. Emily said, "I drew a cat today." Jack said, "I played with blocks." I smiled. I said, "I am proud of you both." That night, Mark called again. I answered. He said, "You went to some office." I said, "Yes, I had to. I need to protect my children." He said, "You think I'm a bad father?" I said, "No, but you scare them. They don't feel safe." He was quiet. Then he said, "Can I see them?" I said, "Not now. They are not ready." He shouted, "You are keeping them from me." I said, "I am keeping them safe." He hung up. My hands were shaking. My mother sat next to me. She said, "You are doing your best." I nodded, but my heart felt heavy. The next day, I took Emily to the doctor. She had a small cough. After the checkup, we walked home. On the way, she said, "Mom, are we going to live here always?" I said, "Maybe." "Can Daddy come here?" she asked. I said, "No, not now." She looked at the ground. "Okay." At home, she drew a picture. It showed a house, a tree, and a mother with 2 children. She gave it to me. "This is us," she said. I hugged her. "It's beautiful." One evening, Jack spilled some juice. It went on the floor. I waited. He looked at me and said, "Are you mad?" "Mommy." I said, "No, sweetie, it's okay." He smiled. That small smile meant everything to me. Days went by. I still felt tired, but I was not afraid anymore. I looked at myself in the mirror. I still looked tired, but I also looked stronger. I called the woman at the office again. I said, "I want to look for work. Something simple." She said, "You can help in a store or clean houses. I can help you find something." "Thank you," I said. The next week I started helping an old woman clean her home. She paid me a little money. I bought bread, eggs, and juice for the kids. It felt good. Mark called less now. Sometimes he sent a short message. One said, "I hope they are okay." Another said, "Are you happy now?" I did not reply. One night my mother and I sat outside. The kids were asleep. She said, "What will you do next?" I said, "I will work more. I will save money. Maybe one day we can rent a small place." She smiled. "You are strong now." I said, "I had to be." The next morning I took the kids to the market. We bought some apples and bread. We walked past a small house for rent. It was small, only 2 rooms, but it had a little garden. Emily said, "Mommy, look, a flower." Jack said, "Can we live there?" I said, "Maybe one day." That night I thought about it. I had a little money. My job was small, but it was a start. I called the number on the sign. A man said, "Yes, it is still for rent. It is simple, but nice." I said, "Can I come see it?" The next day I went. The house was clean. The walls were light blue. The kitchen was small, but I liked it. I said, "I need some time." He said, "Okay, let me know." Back home I told my mom. She said, "If you feel ready, I will help." I felt warm inside. The next week I moved into the house with the kids. My mother helped us. She brought plates and a small table. The kids jumped on the bed. "This is our new home." They said. I smiled. "Yes, it is ours." That night I made rice and eggs. We ate on the floor. We laughed. It was simple, but it was happy. Before bed, Emily said, "Mom, I like our new house." Jack said, "Me too." I turned off the light. "Good night, my loves." In the dark I whispered, "We are okay now." I looked out the window. The sky was full of stars. I knew the road would be hard. I knew I had more to do, but I was not afraid anymore. If you liked my story, please like, comment, and share. More simple and emotional stories are coming soon.